Let me start with a question that hits hard. How many dreams die quietly? Not because of failure, but because of delay. Most people don't lose their future overnight. They lose it one comfortable day at a time. They tell themselves, I'll do it tomorrow, not realizing that tomorrow is the most expensive word in the dictionary. Today, I want to talk to you about a silent enemy, laziness, and why it is the habit that destroys dreams before they ever get a chance to breathe. You see, laziness is not just doing nothing. Laziness is choosing comfort over calling. It's choosing short-term pleasure over long-term purpose. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Your dream does not die from lack of talent, it dies from lack of discipline. The graveyard is full of gifted people who waited for motivation instead of building habits. Motivation comes and goes, but discipline shows up even when feelings don't. Let me give you a hook you need to remember. Success is rented, and rent is due every single day. Laziness tells you to skip the payment today and promises you won't lose anything. But discipline understands that missing today compounds into regret tomorrow. Every time you procrastinate, you are voting against your future self. Every time you delay the work, you are training yourself to quit without even trying. Most people think laziness looks like sleeping late or scrolling too long. No, laziness often looks productive. It looks like planning instead of executing, learning instead of applying, talking instead of doing. You can stay busy and still be lazy, because laziness is not about movement, it's about avoidance. It's avoiding the hard thing that actually changes your life. Here's another truth that might sting. Your dreams are expensive and laziness can't afford them. The life you want requires effort you haven't yet normalized. Discipline is simply deciding that your future matters more than your feelings. When you wake up tired and still work, that's discipline. When you don't feel like showing up, but you show up anyway, that's the bridge between who you are and who you want to become. Understand this clearly. Time doesn't care about your excuses. Time is neutral, but results are not. While you are being lazy, someone else is building the life you want. Someone else is practicing, studying, executing, failing, learning, and growing. And one day you'll meet them and call them lucky, not realizing they just refuse to live comfortably. Most people think laziness is something that happens to them. They say, I'm just lazy, as if it's a personality trait or a medical condition. That belief alone is why they stay stuck. Laziness is not a condition you suffer from, it is a decision you repeat. And the most dangerous part, you usually don't even realize you're making it. Every time you choose comfort over commitment, ease over effort, delay over discipline, you are deciding, not accidentally. Intentionally. Here's a hook you need to hear. Clearly, if laziness were a disease, doctors could cure it, but since it's a choice, only discipline can replace it. You don't wake up lazy, you wake up untrained. You wake up with habits that were rehearsed yesterday. And habits don't change with motivation, they change with decisions. The problem isn't that you don't want success. The problem is that you want comfort more. Think about this. Nobody is lazy about what they truly value. Nobody forgets to check their phone. Nobody needs motivation to eat when they're hungry. Nobody procrastinates on what excites them. So the question is not, why am I lazy? The real question is, why have I trained myself to avoid discomfort? Because laziness is learned behavior, and anything learned can be unlearned. Another hook, feelings are terrible leaders. If you wait until you feel ready, confident, or motivated, you will wait forever. Discipline is not about how you feel, it's about what you decide. High performers don't feel different from you, they decide differently. They act before emotions catch up, and once you act, momentum shows up. Energy follows action, not the other way around. Laziness thrives in excuses. It sounds intelligent. It says, I'll start when things slow down, or I need one more plan, or I just need more time. But time doesn't create discipline. Decisions do. Every excuse you accept today becomes a habit you repeat tomorrow. And over time, those habits quietly shape your identity. You don't just do lazy things. You start seeing yourself as a lazy person. That's when dreams really start to die. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. Laziness feels good now, but charges interest later. Discipline feels hard now, but pays dividends forever. You are always paying a price, either the price of effort or the price of regret. And regret is far more expensive. Regret costs you confidence, self-respect, and belief in yourself. Discipline gives those things back. Understand this clearly. Your future is watching your daily decisions, not your intentions, not your goals, not your vision board, your actions. Small decisions repeated daily are shaping the life you'll live. When you choose to act despite resistance, you rewire who you are. Each disciplined action becomes proof you can be trusted by your own dreams. And here's the final hook inside this idea. The moment you stop identifying as lazy is the moment change begins. Stop saying I am lazy and start saying I have been choosing comfort. That shift gives you power back, because if it's a choice, you can choose again right now. Discipline doesn't require perfection, it requires a decision. Make it once, then make it again tomorrow. That's how habits are built. That's how identity is rewritten. That's how ordinary people produce extraordinary outcomes. Most people believe dreams die because they are too big, too risky, or too hard. That belief is comforting and completely false. Dreams rarely collapse under pressure. They quietly fade under delay. The real enemy is not difficulty, it's postponement. Dreams don't get rejected by life, they get ignored by the person who owns them. And every time you say later, you are not protecting your dream, you are starving it. Here's a hook that cuts deep. Failure is loud, but delay is silent. Failure teaches lessons. Delay teaches nothing except avoidance. When something is hard, at least it forces you to grow. But when you delay, you stay the same. You convince yourself being patient, when in reality you're being passive. And passivity is how ambition slowly loses its voice. Most people don't quit their dreams. They simply keep pushing the start date forward until the dream no longer fits their life. They say, after I'm more prepared, after I have more time, after things settle down. But life never settles down. Responsibilities don't decrease. Time doesn't slow down. What changes is your energy, your courage, and your belief in yourself. Delay doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It creates the perfect excuse. Another hook you need to hear: difficulty builds capacity. Delay destroys confidence. Every time you postpone action, you send a message to your mind that you cannot be trusted. That message compounds. You start doubting your follow-through. You start lowering your standards. You start shrinking your goals to match your habits, not because the dream was impossible, but because waiting trains you to hesitate. Dreams require momentum. Momentum is fragile. It doesn't survive long pauses. When you act even imperfectly, momentum grows. When you delay, momentum dies. And once momentum is gone, restarting feels heavier than starting ever was. That's why people stay stuck for years, telling the same story, repeating the same plans, and wondering why nothing changes. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Delay feels responsible, but it's often fear in disguise. Fear of failing, fear of being judged, fear of discovering your limb. So delay puts on a suit and calls itself planning. It hides behind research, preparation, and waiting for confidence. But confidence is not a prerequisite for action. It is a byproduct of action. You don't become ready and then start. You start and then become ready. Another hook: tomorrow is not a time, it's a trap. Tomorrow has destroyed more dreams than failure ever could, because tomorrow feels safe. Tomorrow feels infinite. But tomorrow keeps moving. And one day, tomorrow turns into someday, and someday turns into never. Not because you weren't capable, but because you never committed. Difficulty, on the other hand, sharpens you. It forces focus. It demands growth. It exposes weaknesses you can fix. A hard path builds strength, skill, and character. Delay builds nothing. It erodes urgency. It dulls hunger. It replaces excitement with explanation. You stop saying "I'm building" and start saying "I'm thinking about it." That shift is subtle and deadly. Understand this clearly. Dreams have expiration dates. Not because the opportunity disappears, but because you change. Your willingness fades. Your tolerance for risk shrinks. Your responsibilities grow. Delay doesn't freeze time. It lets time reshape you into someone less willing to try. Every dream asks one brutal question: will you move before you feel ready? Those who answer yes grow into the dream. Those who answer later watch it drift further away. Action imperfectly taken today is worth more than perfect plans delayed indefinitely. Dreams reward courage, not comfort, and the moment you stop delaying is the moment your dream stops slipping and starts standing still long enough for you to grab it. Comfort is one of the most deceptive forces in a person's life because it feels harmless, it feels earned, it feels reasonable. But comfort is not neutral, it is quietly destructive. Growth never lives where comfort settles. The moment comfort becomes a priority, progress becomes optional. And when progress is optional, potential begins to decay. Here's a hook that most people resist. Comfort doesn't ruin your life all at once. It negotiates with it daily. It whispers, "Rest a little longer, you deserve a break, this can wait." None of those statements sound dangerous, but stacked together over weeks, months, and years, they create a life that looks busy yet produces nothing extraordinary. Comfort doesn't attack your dreams, it slowly replaces them. Most people don't realize they are choosing comfort because comfort disguises itself as balance. It says you're protecting your peace, avoiding stress, or waiting for the right energy. But peace without progress becomes stagnation. Stress avoided today returns as regret tomorrow. The truth is, everything that expands your life will first disrupt your comfort. Learning, discipline, consistency, and growth all require friction. No resistance means no development. Another hook you need to hear: your comfort zone is a beautifully decorated prison. It feels safe because nothing challenges you inside it. But safety without growth eventually feels suffocating. You may not feel pain immediately, but you will feel dissatisfaction. You will feel that quiet frustration of knowing you were meant for more, but settled for less because it felt easier. Comfort trains your nervous system to avoid effort. The more you give into it, the less tolerance you have for discomfort. Small challenges start feeling overwhelming. Simple tasks feel exhausting. Discipline feels extreme. This is not because you are weak, it's because comfort has conditioned you. Just like muscles weaken without resistance, your willpower weakens without challenge. Here's another hook. Comfort steals ambition by lowering your standards. At first you aim high, then you compromise just for now, then compromise becomes normal. Over time your goals shrink to match your lifestyle. You don't abandon the dream, you adjust it downward so it doesn't require sacrifice. That adjustment is how potential gets buried while still alive. The people who grow the most are not the most talented. They are the most willing to be uncomfortable. They do what others avoid. They train when it's inconvenient. They learn when it's frustrating. They show up when it's uncomfortable. And because of that, discomfort becomes temporary, but growth becomes permanent. Comfort does the opposite. It feels good temporarily, but creates permanent limitations. Understand this clearly. Comfort never asks for permission. It slowly takes control if you don't set boundaries against it. It turns discipline into an exception instead of a standard. It convinces you that you can always start later, but later rarely comes because comfort has no urgency. Growth demands urgency. Progress requires intentional resistance. Another hook that separates high performers from everyone else. Discomfort is not a signal to stop. It's a signal that you are expanding. When something feels uncomfortable, most people retreat. High performers lean in. They recognize that discomfort is evidence of change. It means you are stepping into unfamiliar territory. And unfamiliar territory is where all progress lives. Comfort promises safety but delivers stagnation. Discomfort promises uncertainty but delivers transformation. One keeps you where you are. The other takes you where you say you want to go. The life you admire in others is built on decisions that were uncomfortable at the time. Nobody accidentally grows. Growth is always intentional and almost always uncomfortable. Every time you choose comfort over effort, you reinforce the identity of someone who avoids challenge. Every time you choose effort over comfort, you build the identity of someone who rises. Identity is shaped in moments that feel small but repeated. The question is not whether discomfort will come, it's whether you will use it as a signal to grow or an excuse to retreat. Discipline is often misunderstood as punishment, restriction, or force, but discipline is not about being hard on yourself. It is about honoring yourself. It is self-respect in action. It is the visible proof that you take your future seriously. Anyone can talk about goals, but discipline is what separates intention from integrity. When you do what you said you would do, especially when you don't feel like it, you send a powerful message to yourself. I can be trusted. Here's a hook most people need to hear. Confidence is not built by success. It is built by keeping promises to yourself. Every time you follow through, your self-belief strengthens. Every time you quit on yourself, even in small ways, that belief weakens. Discipline is not about impressing others. It is about protecting your own credibility. And once you lose credibility with yourself, motivation stops listening to you. Most people think discipline requires motivation. That's backwards. Discipline creates motivation. When you act without emotional agreement, momentum appears. Energy follows movement. Clarity follows commitment. The disciplined person does not wait to feel inspired. They move first and allow inspiration to catch up. That's why disciplined people appear confident. They've proven to themselves repeatedly that feelings do not control their actions. Another hook that hits hard. Your mood is temporary, but your habits are permanent. Feelings change hourly. Discipline stays daily. If your life is built on feelings, it will be unstable. If your life is built on discipline, it will be dependable. High-level performers understand this. They don't ask, do I feel like it? They ask, what does my standard require? Standards remove negotiation. Discipline enforces standards. Self-respect grows when you do difficult things voluntarily. Waking up early when no one is watching. Showing up when no one is clapping. Finishing when quitting would be easier. These moments don't look impressive from the outside, but they reshape you on the inside. An internal strength always shows up externally, eventually. Discipline is how you tell yourself that your future deserves effort today. Here's another hook. Discipline hurts once, regret hurts every day. Discipline asks for temporary discomfort. Regret demands permanent explanation. When you skip the work, you don't escape pain, you postpone it. And postponed pain always returns with interest. Discipline pays dividends in peace, confidence, and progress. Regret pays dividends in frustration, doubt, and missed potential. Discipline also removes chaos. Most stress is not caused by too much responsibility. It's caused by inconsistency. When actions don't match intentions, tension is created. Discipline aligns what you say with what you do. That alignment produces peace. You don't overthink. You don't negotiate with yourself all day. You move with clarity because your standards are already decided. Another powerful truth. Discipline is an identity before it is a behavior. The moment you see yourself as someone who finishes, who shows up, who does the work, your actions follow. Identity drives behavior. Every disciplined action is a vote for the person you are becoming. And once that identity is established, discipline becomes less about effort and more about alignment. Discipline does not require perfection, it requires consistency. Missing once is human. Quitting is a habit. Disciplined people don't obsess over failure, they return to the standard quickly. They don't dramatize setbacks, they correct course and continue. That's why they win long term. They respect the process enough to stay in it. Here's the final hook inside this idea. The level of discipline you practice today determines the level of freedom you experience tomorrow. Discipline creates options. It creates leverage. It creates choice. A disciplined life may feel restricted in the moment, but it produces freedom in the future, and that freedom is earned by those who respect themselves enough to do what others avoid. Most people take pride in being busy. They wear it like a badge of honor, full schedules, endless to-do lists, constant motion. But busy is not the same as productive, and confusing the two is one of the most expensive mistakes a person can make. Activity can feel like progress without producing results. And that illusion keeps people stuck for years while convincing them they are trying. Here's a hook that exposes the problem. If being busy created success, everyone would be winning. Busyness is easy. Productivity is intentional. Anyone can fill their day. Few people can focus their day. Busy people react to life. Productive people design their actions. One feels exhausting. The other feels effective. Busyness often hides behind good intentions. Planning, researching, learning, organizing, attending meetings, these feel responsible. They feel safe. They feel like work. But without execution, they are just preparation loops. You can spend your entire life getting ready and never arrive anywhere. Preparation without action becomes procrastination dressed as progress. Another hook that cuts deep. Activity reduces guilt. Execution creates results. Being busy makes you feel like you've earned rest. But results don't care how tired you are. Results only respond to completed actions. You don't get rewarded for effort you never applied in the right direction. Motion is not mastery. Visibility is not value. Most people avoid execution because execution creates exposure. Once you act, you can fail. Once you publish, build, launch, or present, you can be judged. Busyness protects ego. Execution tests it. That's why people choose tasks to keep them occupied but not accountable. They stay in motion to avoid measurement. Here's another hook. If your work cannot be measured, it cannot be trusted. Productive people prioritize outcomes over activity. They ask, what moves the needle? Busy people ask, what keeps me occupied? One question builds moment. The other builds fatigue. Productivity demands clarity. Busyness thrives in confusion. Being productive often requires doing fewer things, not more. Focus beats volume. One high-impact action executed consistently will outperform 10 low-impact actions done randomly. But focus is uncomfortable. It requires saying no. It requires ignoring distractions. It requires discipline. Busyness feels easier because it avoids choice. Productivity demands it. Another uncomfortable truth, busy people often mistake urgency for importance. They respond to notifications, emails, and minor tasks because they feel immediate. Important work rarely feels urgent, but it creates long-term value. Productive people protect time for important work even when nothing is demanding it. Busy people wait until pressure forces them to act. Execution also builds clarity. Thinking does not. You can plan something for months and still not understand it. But once you act, feedback shows up. Reality responds. You learn faster through execution than through endless analysis. Clarity is earned in motion, not in contemplation. The fastest way to figure something out is to start. Here's a hook that separates performers from pretenders. Talking about work is not the same as doing the work. Conversations, ideas, and intentions don't create progress. Action does. And action doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. Imperfect execution beats perfect planning every time. Productive people measure their days by what they completed, not by how much they touched. They understand leverage. They identify the few actions that create disproportionate results and commit to those, even when they are difficult. Busyness spreads energy thin. Productivity concentrates it. Busyness keeps you feeling involved. Productivity moves you forward. One keeps you tired. The other makes you effective. And the moment you stop asking, how full is my schedule? And start asking, what did I actually finish? Is the moment your effort begins to compound instead of disappear. Most people think the future is shaped by big moments, major decisions, once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, dramatic breakthroughs. But the future is rarely built that way. It is built quietly, daily, through habits that seem small enough to ignore. Your habits are not just actions, they are instructions you give your future. And whether you realize it or not, you're casting votes every day for the life you will eventually live. Here's a hook that shifts perspective. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. Goals inspire, but habits decide. You can have a powerful vision and still live an average life if your daily actions don't support it. The future doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you repeatedly do. Habits work whether you believe in them or not. They compound silently. One small positive habit practiced consistently can change the direction of your life. One small negative habit tolerated daily can quietly dismantle it. The danger is that habits don't feel dramatic in the moment. Skipping one workout, delaying one task, wasting 1 hour feels harmless. But the future is built in accumulation, not in single events. Another hook you need to hear: your habits are voting even on days you feel unmotivated. Motivation comes and goes. Habits remain. That's why relying on motivation is unreliable. Habits run on autopilot. Once established, they operate with or without your attention. That makes them powerful, but also dangerous if they are poorly chosen. Every habit shapes identity. What you do repeatedly becomes who you believe you are. When you consistently act with discipline, you start seeing yourself as disciplined. When you repeatedly avoid effort, you begin identifying as someone who struggles with consistency. Identity then reinforces behavior, creating a loop that either elevates you or limits you. Habits are not just shaping your schedule. EY are shaping your self-image. Here's another hook. The future version of you is being trained by the present version of you. Future success is not a surprise. It's a preview you rehearse daily. The way you manage your time, your focus, your energy, and your standards today is exactly how your future will feel. If today is chaotic, tomorrow will be too. If today is intentional, tomorrow becomes predictable. Many people underestimate habits because they don't see immediate rewards. Positive habits often feel unrewarding at first. Negative habits feel satisfying immediately. This delay is what traps people. Discipline feels slow until it compounds. Laziness feels fast until it costs you years. Habits don't just shape outcomes, they shape patience. Another powerful hook: consistency beats intensity every time. Intense effort done occasionally produces frustration. Moderate effort done consistently produces mastery. You don't need massive action, you need repeatable action. Small disciplines done daily outperform rare bursts of motivation. The future rewards those who show up regularly, not those who show up dramatically. Habits also reduce decision fatigue. When actions become automatic, discipline becomes easier. You don't debate, you don't negotiate, you execute. This is why high performers simplify their routines. They remove unnecessary choices so energy can be directed toward meaningful work. Strong habits create mental clarity. Weak habits create constant internal conflict. The most dangerous habits are not the obviously destructive ones, but the subtle ones. Scrolling instead of studying, delaying instead of starting, choosing convenience over effort. These habits feel harmless, but they quietly steal time, focus, and belief. And time lost daily is rarely recovered later. Your future is not waiting for a breakthrough. It is waiting for consistency. Every day you practice your habits, you are either reinforcing the life you want or rehearsing the life you'll regret. The future doesn't arrive suddenly. It shows up gradually, shaped by what you chose to repeat when no one's watching. So let me close with this: kill laziness before it kills your dream. Don't wait to feel ready. Don't wait to feel confident. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. Decide today that comfort will no longer be your master, and discipline will become your daily habit. Because dreams don't respond to wishes. They respond to work. If you want a different future, you must practice different habits. And the moment you replace laziness with discipline is the moment your dream stops being a fantasy and starts becoming a destination.